So, today's subject is an integral Zen perspective on Buddha, Dharma, and Sangha. So, what is Buddha, you ask? And Anthony de Mello would answer, it is the unity with God. He would call it Christos, becoming one with Christ. I understand that way of phrasing it, but I'm noticing that doesn't work for everybody. It works for a certain group of birds of a feather that flock together. We might call them amber religious. But it doesn't work for the secular Sangha that believes in science and the scientific method and reduces everything to the upper right quadrant of scientific materialism. It doesn't work for them at all. In fact, it triggers them. They seem to have an allergy against those words and that view. It's like they have a prejudice against it. And they have a preference for their way of looking at things that reduces everything to the upper right quadrant, where you see all these objects. And you have all this knowledge that science has accumulated about all these physical things that have been named and categorized and analyzed and grouped. Scientific empirical knowledge. What an incredible thing. What a wealth of knowledge we've accumulated. What is Buddha? Well, there's a koan that asks that question. There's several. One of the koans asks, what is Buddha? And then gives you the answer. And that's the koan. It's a shit stick. So just when you think you're becoming one with God or one with Buddha nature, what is Buddha? A shit stick. That was in the days before toilet paper. So now a modern version of that koan would be toilet paper. Wipe your ass. Clean up after yourself. Yes. Get the joke. When you've lost the sense of humor, you've lost the way. When you're triggered by the koan, Buddha is a shit stick. Get over yourself. You're taking yourself far too seriously. Yeah, clean up. So, what is Buddha? What is Buddha nature? What is God? What is Brahman? What is the absolute? This is a deep question. Be careful. You might fall in. You might fall into the emptiness. Isn't that interesting? You might become one with the emptiness. Be careful. Be very careful. It feels like death. It's not, of course, but it feels like it. The toes contract, the body contracts, the ego contracts, everything contracts. Until everything opens, especially the heart breaks open. So don't stop in the contraction. Jump all the way where everything breaks open, especially the heart. And all those opinions and ideas crack like eggshells. You make this beautiful ambrosia omelet. Don't stop too soon. Don't cling onto the cliff. So what is Buddha? One answer to that question is no self. Buddha is no self. But you have to, just like you're standing on the edge, you have to jump all the way into no self. You can't cling to the sides of my favorite self, whatever self that is. Other names for self are the thinker, the feeler, the achiever, the perfectionist, the social justice warrior, the savior. All these are just names for self. Don't cling to one like you're clinging to a rock on the edge of the cliff. Jump into the abyss. No self means no self. No hidden selves. No favorite selves. No false selves. What part of no self do we fail to understand? Well, the parts that we're really attached to, addicted to, and the parts that are hidden that we can't fucking see yet. Those are the selves that we cling to, like clinging to the moss on the edge of the cliff, not wanting to jump into the abyss. Well, you either jump or you don't jump. There's no half jumps. You either succeed, as Nelson Mandela said, or you learn. You learn where you're stuck and you get unstuck, just like Chinese medicine. This evolved over thousands of years, this Chinese medicine, poking little spears in the whole house of the body, the psyche, to liberate the energy that's stuck and causing the disease. My favorite acupuncturist who studied in China and studied Tibetan Buddhism and is one of my students, and joined the circus at a very young age and toured the world. There's a crazy guy, my kind of guy. He told me the story that Chinese medicine evolved out of an imperial age where they used to have to go purify the houses of the ghosts and the evil spirits. And they would go into a house, these big warriors dressed in their armor with their spears and their swords, and they'd poke and be fierce. They would exorcise the demons out of the corners in the ceiling by fiercely challenging them and poking spears into them. Isn't that great? And that evolved into all the meridians in the body. And that whole body of knowledge, trial and error, that evolved over thousands of years into this system of healing, Taoism. So this no self involves healing and chasing out the demons and the evil spirits and the unhelpful spirits. It involves bringing what's unconscious into consciousness. And it's a little more complicated today because the demons and the evil spirits have become hidden in the unconscious. So we have to dig them out. We have to heal them. We have to repair them. We have to have a healthy self. If you don't have a healthy self and you get rid of the self, or get rid of the notion of self, or the whole illusion of self collapses like a deck of cards, then you're left with all the hidden selves that are disgusting and evil, or seem so. Isn't that interesting? That's why it's so important to do shadow work before you wake up. Because the windows and the doors that you have to go through, look through, to find your hidden shadows, your disowned selves, when that house of cards collapses, you lose the capacity to reach the demons, to see them, so that you can heal them or exorcise them. That's why it's so important to do shadow work and dig all that nasty stuff out before you practice enough to awaken. Not that many of us are in danger of awakening. That would require something like a 3-year Tibetan retreat where you'd focus on nothing but that. Or, 100 or so 7-day Zen retreats, or a monastery, a couple years in a monastery. So unless you're intending to run out or halfway through such a project, you're probably, the odds against you awakening quickly are pretty slim. Better odds in winning the lottery. So what is Buddha? Well, Buddha, there's a gross body of the Buddha. It's the physical body of Siddhartha Gautama. There's a subtle body of the Buddha, and that's the impact his living and awakening has had karmically. His awakening is present right now, just like Christ's awakening, or Moses bringing back the 10 Commandments, or any of the great religious heroes who, to their great dismay, religions were formed around them. Can you imagine what Christ would say if he looked at the Christians? Or what Jung would say if he looked at all these Jungians? Or what Ken Wilber says when he looked at all these integral zealots? I didn't get to ask Jung, I didn't get to ask Christ, but I've had this conversation with Ken Wilber, and we just laughed our asses off. Because you know what he told me? He says, well, what do you think Christ would say about all these Christians? Need I say more? Get the joke. Yeah, what was ironic was when he told me that, I was still pretty much an integral zealot. I hadn't let go of my attachment to that. I had an agenda to save the world with integral theory. Hadn't quite been able to release that yet, let that go. So part of it was hilarious and part of it wasn't funny at all. What is Buddha? What is nothing? What is the awareness that opens like the empty sky when you finally jump into the abyss and experience directly no self? No self. No challenger, no perfectionist, no peacemaker, no thinker, no feeler, no storyteller. Oh my God, did I say no storyteller? Who would I be without my storyteller? Well, I'd be a lot quieter. Instead of you all trying to figure out what the hell I'm talking about, it would be more like when we were just sitting in silence. Wasn't that lovely? Haven't we degraded since then? So whatever you do, don't believe anything I say. But do we believe things? Of course we do. We have to believe things. We have to have filters to filter things out so we know what's important. And we're all indoctrinated into sanghas, into communities that have belief systems and moral values and rituals that they perform, mindlessly usually, and biases for and against things. But have you really challenged the Sangha you were born into with all its prejudices and preferences, and shoulds and shouldn'ts, and rights and wrongs, and loves and hates? Have you really questioned this and decided for yourself what you're going to believe? And then based upon what? Based upon what you desire? Based on what you want to achieve? What you want to accumulate? What you like and dislike? What have you used as a criteria for deciding what your own ethical values, beliefs, rituals, and biases are? Have you really made an effort here to question everything, doubt everything, and not accept anything on blind faith? When you do that, the faith comes alive. It's no longer blind. And you're guided. As the Buddha said, when you get on a path, the foot feels the ground and the heart knows the way to stay on the path. And the heart knows when it's time to get off the path and go your own way. But you got to really be paying attention. And then you got to be open for feedback. And you have to be able to adjust your course consciously. Or you get stuck. Anybody been stuck? Yeah, I went down that rabbit hole. Boy, it's a sticky one. Don't go there. There's landmines in that rabbit hole. Yeah. So, Buddha, what is Buddha? No self. No hidden self. No secret self. No personal, individual agendas. Intentions, wholehearted intentions, but don't let them freeze into agendas. Don't get attached and believe something, or you'll get stuck. Doesn't matter whether it's believe in God, believe in science, believe in equality, or believe in evolution, or believe in embodiment. Don't get stuck in a hidden, frozen agenda. Stay open, honest, and vulnerable. And trust that you have an immune system that when you get sick will heal. Trust that there's intelligence in the body to heal the diseases. And there's intelligence in the mind to heal the agendas. And trust that there's intelligence in the soul to heal the sicknesses of the soul. and trust that there's a spirit, a great spirit that knows no bounds, that some call Buddha, some call Dharma, some call the Tao, some call God or Brahman or Allah or Ein Hof. We have many names for this absolute nothingness, beyond all things, pure awareness. And know that in a group of people, when you call it anything, that group of people will freeze it into a belief system, like a religion or a political ideology. It will be a frozen agenda that you must liberate yourself from, the karma of. So Buddha, emptiness, no self. But don't make something out of nothing. Don't call it God or Buddha. Keep it a pure intention to do the right thing at the right time in the right way for the right reason, spontaneously, without hesitation. At the speed of awareness, not the speed of thought, or the speed of feeling, or the speed of emotional, or the speed of self-reactivity. At the speed of awareness. So, what is Dharma? Dharma has a dual meaning. In one sense, in a relative sense, it's the teachings of the Buddha. It's the belief system of those who call themselves Buddhists, or more specifically, those who practice Buddhism. Because it's not about converting people to these beliefs. It becomes all about the intention of maintaining a consistent, deepening practice that involves two things. First, becoming a better person. I would call that spiritual growth. Becoming a better person. Every religion has that as an intention and has methodologies to help you, rules to follow, 600 commandments, 600 precepts. This is what you do under every conceivable set of circumstances, and there's 600 of them. There's a ritual way to do everything. And if you follow these rules, you'll become a more spiritual, kinder human being. That's the methodology of all the amber religions at a certain period in time, which is probably about 1,000 years ago, maybe more. So that's one meaning for the Dharma, the teachings of the Buddha. The other meaning for the Dharma is more absolute. What is real? What is? These are the same question. It's not two questions. What is real. And not what I think is or what I believe is, what actually is. But how do I know that something is? Well, I experience it. This is a view of the Yogacara Buddhist school, mind-only school. I don't know what's out there. I only know what I experience. What arises in my experience is all I know. And then the little mind comes in and has a feeling about it, or has a thought that arises as it arises, the experience, or has an opinion about it. These are real because we experience them, the feelings and the thoughts, the categorizing. It's part of what is. There is a mind that does this that we need to be mindful of and observe. We need to observe this whole process. This is mindfulness meditation. Notice, focus attention on the field of experience and notice every object that arises in that field. Observe it, name it, and then let it go. Oh, that's a thought. Oh, that's a negative feeling. Oh, that's a positive feeling. Notice, name, and let it go. And clearly define all the possibilities of objects that can arise in your experience. What's first turning Buddhism? The best of first turning Buddhism. It's an amazing experience to do that over an extended period of time until you've named everything that can arise in your experience. And you know what the source is. Oh, that's an image. It's coming in through the gateway of the eyes into the visual consciousness. Oh, that's a sound. It's coming in through the gateway of the ears into the auditory consciousness. Oh, that's a feeling. It's arising in this heartfelt sense of liking and disliking, loving and hating, fuzzy thinking. Oh, that's an idea. It's arising in the mind. What is Dharma? It's on the one hand the teachings of the Buddha, and on the other hand, it's everything that is, the suchness of what is, before I filter things out and pollute my experience, before I add things to, add all my opinions and beliefs, and pollute the direct experience of exactly what is arising in this moment. And then we notice insights, which is what puts us on the path of becoming one with the Buddha. The insights are a different source. They don't come in through the six sense gateways of eyes, ears, nose, tongue, body, mind, heart, mind. They come out of nowhere, out of nothingness. And they have a very different quality. They're selfless. They don't originate in self-referencing mind, little mind, the left brain mind, the emissary that McGillichrist points to. They arise directly out of what is, the nothingness that is. So it becomes lengthening the spaciousness, the emptiness, the timelessness between thoughts and images and sounds and feelings. Lengthening the silence, expanding the silence, make room for more and deeper insights as you become selfless. Now, what is Sangha? Well, Sangha, it's the birds of a feather that flock together. How many Sanghas do you belong to? In this complex world, it's impossible to belong to one Sangha unless you isolate yourself in a cave somewhere with just a very small group of people. Unless you join a religious cult or an ideological cult where all these birds of the same feather flock together and chirp the same song. But it's not their song. It's a collective song. They don't have an individual song. They haven't learned one. They've just accepted. They've drunk the Sangha Kool-Aid of beliefs and values and haven't challenged them to decide. And some of us have to some degrees. That's what brought us into other Sanghas with different beliefs and different values, which encouraged us to decide what we want to believe and value. But if you had a realization of no self, would you have a need to believe anything? Or would you be completely present, accepting everything that is as it spontaneously arises? And would you need to decide from little mind, slow mind, conditioned mind, what you should do? Or would you just immediately see the one right thing to do under every unique arising circumstances and just immediately do it in the right way, the skillful way, at the right time, for the right reason? This is what the Buddha would do. This is what you would do if you had attained the realization of the Buddha, of no self. And if please don't believe me, that just makes a cult belief. Go see for yourself. Test this. That's why this practice that we've developed, or I improved what Genpo Roshi and Jumpo Roshi have done. Genpo Roshi with his big mind process. Jumpo Roshi with his Mondo Zen process. I've decided to call it touching the true face. They've decided the name kind of imposed itself on me. It's like, okay, Doshin, shut up, and it's time to call this the true face instead of Mondo. Touching the true face, that's the appropriate name under these conditions for this Sangha. Okay, I said. Got out of the way. No agenda. Not trying to save the world anymore with Integral Zen. We got enough people trying to save the world. We got enough people creating all that suffering. Don't need another one. And yet, that's not the same as doing nothing. That's not the same as saying nothing. Doing the right thing at the right time in the right way for the right reason is the antithesis of that. It's so far beyond that. Anybody that's caught in right and wrong won't be able to see it. And it needs to happen so immediately that the minute you start considering whether it's right or wrong, whether you like it or dislike it, you've missed it. This is koan training. You must say something. Here's the question. Do you hesitate? You flunked the koan. Do you stop and think? You flunked the koan. Do you feel your way in? Do you like it or you flunked the koan? It must be spontaneous, immediate. You must immediately see the right answer at the right time, now, and answer it for the right reason. No reason. Just because you can. It's here. Name it the true faith. Okay. What is the Buddha? Shesik. Immediate. Appropriate. And then realizing each one of these koans, these examples of Buddha answering the question immediately, spontaneously, out of nowhere, out of no mind, no self. Each one of these becomes an example of how you too might awaken. So when you sit with this koan, you soak in this tension, great doubt, great awakening. The greater the doubt, the greater the awakening. You sit in this performative contradiction, this tension between not knowing and needing to know. If you soak in it long enough, the accident can happen. You can see and realize for yourself what is Buddha. So Sanghas, how many Sanghas do you belong to? Have you questioned the intentions of the Sangha, the agendas of the Sangha? Can you see what they are and articulate them in words and letters? Or are you just following your Sangha with blind faith toward a cliff like a lemming? Can you clearly articulate, see and articulate what each group's agenda is? Oh, our group, we believe in God. Our agenda is to convert all heathens and save their souls. That's not necessarily a good, healthy agenda. Look what happened in colonialism, looking for gold to fill the royal coffers. Oh, how many people died and suffered and were burned at the stake. Given the choice, you want to become a Christian or you want to burn at the stake? Not exactly a good choice to be given. What would you choose? So if that's not it, the fundamentalism could be scientific fundamentalism, scientific materialism, upper right quadrant stuff. That can become an agenda, a very rigid agenda that rejects becoming a better person, that rejects all these rituals of how do you become a better person, all these rules and roles that lead a promiscuous ego to become more saintly, throws out the baby with the dirty bathwater, the dirty bathwater being a mythic version of God, a mythic name and religion. What Wilber calls a level line fallacy, where you reject the mythical version of God and you also reject the whole spiritual line of development with a false presumption that it's more important to be rational than it is to be a good person. Self totally identified with the belief that rationalism is enlightenment when it's only a tiny piece of the path to integral awakening. It's an important piece, but it's not the whole banana. And I could carve a better ideology out of a banana, as one of my teachers used to say. I could carve a better belief system out of a banana than what scientific materialists have, even though it's better than the one that the religious zealots had that were burning people at the stake. Even though it's better than the emperor had, where do what I tell you or I'll kill you. That's not necessarily a good one either. Or what about the postmodern version, the postmodern agenda, and all its shoulds and shouldn'ts? Can you articulate what those shoulds and shouldn'ts are? What are the rules and the roles? What are the rituals that we mindlessly perform? What's on our altar and what's the blind spot behind the object on the altar? What is the agenda? What is the equivalent of burning people at the stake? So the individual and the Sangha, there's a dynamic interaction that's much more complex today than 1,000 years ago. How many people would you have to talk to before you would find somebody that belongs to 10 different communities? How far would you have to travel? How many days would you have to travel before you ran into 10 people that believed completely different belief systems? A long, long way. Think about it. Think of Marco Polo traveling for years through China. Think today of, Google. You can Google 1,000 different belief systems, ethnic worlds in an hour. Doesn't mean you can really understand them or get a feel for what it's like to be them, or you can experience them, but you can at least think about them. What a gift to be born into this age with all these teachings. What a gift. Buddha, Dharma, and Sanghas. And how the individual evolves and awakens in the context of a collective Sangha. That dynamic between the individual and the group is so important. Buddha, Dharma, and Sangha are crucial. But what is the difference between having a Sangha where the most important thing is awakening, but integral awakening? It's a Sangha that supports waking up, growing up, cleaning up after you screwed up, because that's where the learning takes place. That's where the failure and the learning comes in. The failure that's not failure, it's just learning. What would it be like to have a Sangha support you in a way that supported every single part of you? All the little insecure attachments, the little children and infants that are still here and alive and causing trouble in your life, that need to grow up, that need to be safe and nurtured and have power, taught how to have individual agency and power, and then need to be taught to discipline the promiscuous 2-year-old that is totally selfish by design, by necessity. Teach them how to follow the rules and discipline and be devoted to something. And then teach them how to achieve something and be rational human beings. And then teach them how to be sensitive and take the journey within and discover the wonders that have been submerged in what Wilber calls a submergent unconscious. All those golden shadows that were terrified. Oh God, I'm not good enough for that. All those negative shadows were terrified. Oh God, I'm just like that. No, I'm not. I refuse to be like that. I'm not like that. I'll pretend I'm not like that. I'll tell you a story where I'm not like that, and I'll believe it. We must learn to love all of ourselves. And we must join a Sangha that will help us and support us, not reject parts of ourselves. Well, I looked everywhere for such a Sangha, and I couldn't fucking find one anywhere. Then I decided to create one. Only one problem. I set the bar. Okay, the bar is second tier, integral understanding, and witnessing mind, one with emptiness, are so close for all practical purposes. There was only one problem. I didn't qualify. If I didn't qualify, that means I wouldn't recognize people that did qualify. So I let people in that didn't qualify. And if I hadn't let people in that did qualify, I would have had an empty Sangha, which is not a Sangha. So I made lots of mistakes, and I learned from every single one. And now I've let go of my agenda to creating such a Sangha. But I still hold this pure intention right up front in my heart. And that's why I'm here talking to you today. And if this resonates with you in any way whatsoever, that's why you're here listening to my bullshit. Something's moving inside you. So please don't believe my bullshit, but let it inspire you to question everything. Let it inspire you to really sink your teeth into things until you see for yourself what is true and what is not true, what is helpful and what is not helpful, what is liberating and what is not liberating, what is imprisoning and what is not imprisoning. And trust that when your foot feels the ground, your heart mind, your selfless heart mind, your big heart, big mind will know the way, and your little mind will decide to follow the path instantly, without thought, without feeling, without judgment, without ritual. Just do the right thing in the right moment, in the right way, for the right reason, and you will end up awakened, which means no self. My condolences. We'll have a funeral service for you. So don't wait, die before you die. Jump. So that's enough of that.